Welcome back to Counting the Cost, your weekly business stop here on Al Jazeera. I'm Kamal Santamaria. You really couldn't avoid Germany in the last week or so, could you? The eyes of much of the world were on Berlin as it marked 20 years since the fall of its infamous wall. These days, Germany is undoubtedly the biggest exporter in the world and the fourth biggest economy in the world. But the economic cost of the fall of the Berlin Wall is actually not far from the surface. More on that now with Sama Al-Shahat in London.
Kamal, thank you. There's no doubt that the fall of the Berlin Wall has been a political success story, but in economic terms, it hasn't. Since 1990, West Germany has ploughed $1.9 trillion into East Germany. Now, take a look at these numbers. They clearly show that the former East European countries have grown faster than East Germany and West Germany. East Germany used to boast full employment. Now the East suffers from high unemployment running at 11.8%. In the West, it's 6.6%. So not surprisingly, not all remember the fall of the wall as a triumph. In addition, tens of thousands of workers traveled to East Germany from communist states around the world like Angola, Mozambique, Vietnam and Cuba. But now, 20 years after the fall of the wall and communism, what has happened to their lives? Barnaby Phillips went to meet them.
Today, the wall survives in fragments, a sight for tourists to snap. Hard to imagine what it meant, how its fall brought happiness, but also turmoil to so many. João Fortuna came to the old East Germany in 1980. He was one of thousands of Mozambicans sent here at that time. They came out of socialist solidarity, but often they lived in cramped barracks, isolated, missing home. Most left when the wall fell. But João stayed. He has a good job in this factory. But this will never be home, and in some ways life was better under communism.
It was safer before. In the old days, we'd go out, play football with the locals. We didn't feel racism like we do now. Now there's fear, and at night you have to be careful. I think it's to do with the economy. The insecurity now, the unemployment, they blame the foreigners.
This factory collapsed in the early 90s. Like so many others, it found it just could not compete in the new capitalist system. It was a traumatic time across the old East Germany, not least for the thousands of contract workers brought here to serve a country and a system that suddenly no longer existed.
Almut Berger was an East German peace activist, appointed by the government to find ways to help the contract workers after the wall fell.
Some individuals and countries benefited from this scheme at a certain time, but overall this is not a happy story. Especially for the Mozambicans, I would say they were the clear losers when the wall came down.
Nguyen Loan came from Vietnam to work in a metal factory in 1982. Again, most of her old friends have gone back. But she saw opportunities when the wall fell, and today feels almost German.
50-50. Well, I'm 50-50. I only went to school back home in Vietnam, nothing more, and I've lost so many contacts. I've been here 30 years, built relationships and a new home. Maybe in my thinking I'm more Vietnamese, but in my heart, I feel more like a German.
At the Brandenburg Gate, this is a time of celebration and unity in Germany. The fall of the wall turned the lives of contract workers upside down. But 20 years on, some have succeeded and forged an identity in this new Germany. Barnaby Phillips, Al Jazeera, Berlin.
We can now talk to Jens Holscher of Brighton University here in the UK. He's also president of the European Association for Comparative Economic Studies. Jens, thank you so much for coming in. Now tell me, why has Germany's economic reunification failed?
I mean, for the East German economy, unification came as a big shock. They weren't prepared for it. The companies weren't prepared. The institutions of the state were not prepared. Within a year, the new currency, the Deutschmark, the Western Deutschmark, was introduced. There was no financial sector in East Germany before.
So why were things so rushed? I mean, you would think that rebuilding an economy, that these people would take their time.
like in other East European economies. But I think the government at the time, maybe quite rightly, saw that there's only a very short window of time in history for that particular moment, and they basically jumped on it.
Do you think this was almost populism, almost a hate for a socialist model that really overtook better economic considerations?
No, I don't think so, because we had and still have sort of voting by feet. I mean, we have seen the pictures that people came over the wall. I myself got visitors from East Germany coming into West Berlin, where I was living at the time. So I think there was a pressure of action, a real pressure, not just populism. There might have been other ways. With the benefit of hindsight, one would have wished that a more gradual procedure would have been applied. But it looks, even with the benefit of hindsight, that everything had to go very quickly.
Now, there's still a huge divide between East Germany and West Germany, an economic divide. When do you think East Germany would be able to catch up?
Another half century, 50 years, or maybe never. That's a sad perspective I have to convey here. There are different calculations, of course, and depends. There are areas in East Germany which are basically deserted by the people. So one wonders who is the last one to switch off the light. So if nobody is there anymore, then it can go more quickly. And
they're deserted because they've moved into West Germany.
Yes, and of course you can imagine who moves. These are the bright and talented younger parts of the population.
So in effect what you're talking about is a brain drain.
It is a brain drain, yes.
So long term, what does that mean for the eastern side?
It means that catching up might even be delayed further than it looks now. Also, we have an aging society in Germany in general, but of course East Germany is aging faster. Also the birth rates are going down, and with this brain drain of young talented people, the whole social dilemma is growing very quickly.
Now, you may never have actually heard of this next company, Germany's SAP, but it is the biggest business software company in the world. It has 82,000 corporate customers worldwide and competes with the likes of Microsoft and Oracle. So you've heard of it now. But not surprisingly, the global recession hit business providers like SAP pretty badly. Its chief executive, Leo Apotheker, stopped by the studio earlier this week. I began by asking him if he thought the worst was really over.
Well, that's a great question. Actually, we have the privilege of being a global company, so we have a bit of a global view. I think the worst is probably behind us. The good news is it's not getting worse. So I think we are stabilizing, we're seeing some plateauing effect. The real question that's on everyone's mind, of course, is what's happening now. We're going to come out of it in a V shape, in L shapes, in a W. I mean, there are all kinds of letters around. But I honestly believe the worst is behind us.
Were you surprised that Europe took such a beating? We are seeing countries coming out now declaring themselves officially recession-free. The UK, though, still in a lot of trouble. Were you surprised that Europe got hit quite as hard as it did?
Well, to be quite frank with you, I think everyone got surprised by the amplitude of this crisis. This is something that no one expected in this kind of a magnitude. Europe is a continent, or the main European economies are very much export-driven, and when the market collapsed, of course, we collapsed significantly with the market. I think we'll recover. The real question is what is going to be the speed of the recovery.
How badly or otherwise was SAP actually affected? The way I look at your company, and forgive me for oversimplifying here, but you're a business that supplies other businesses. You need your own business to be in good shape, but you're reliant on everyone else. Whether they're purchasing new software upgrades or new business, you're completely reliant on everyone else, really.
You're absolutely right. In fact, what we do is we enable the world to run better. And therefore, you see us always coming into an economic crisis, and we are affected by it. We usually come out of it fast, and when we come out of it, we help many other businesses to come out of it as well by enabling them to do a much better job than ever before. And that's happening right now as well.
But did people cut back a lot during this recession? It seems like things like R&D, research and development, would be the first sort of thing to go in a recession. Did you find that with your customers?
You know, You have to face this. We're having this chat now. We're now in November. Everything starts to look better. If I take you back to January, we'd have had the same discussion. In January, we were all wondering, are we still going to be around in March? So things have stabilized. I think many businesses are now seeing that if you really want to come out of this crisis as a stronger company, now is the time to invest into IT. IT is the only capability that we have to build a stronger, more sustainable growth for the future. And SAP is in the forefront of it.
You had to cut, if I'm correct, around 3,000 jobs, which was a first in the company's history. Is that something, as there's a recovery, that you can start to peg back, or is a more sort of streamlined version of SAP, is that a lesson?
It was a tough decision to make. It's a good thing we made that decision. We became a much leaner, much more agile company. It helped us to come out of this crisis in a way more stronger fashion. It helped us to sustain our economic base. We didn't hit any of the fundamentals of the company, and I'm very confident that coming out of the situation, you will see out there in the market a very lean, a very hungry, a very strong SAP that is going to be yet once again the world leader in its business.
And that's about it for this week. Check us out online, though, when you get the chance. Head to aljazeera.net/English, hit the programs link, and there you'll find the Counting the Cost page where you can catch up with this week's and some of our previous shows. That's it from Counting the Cost. I'm Kamal Santamaria from the whole team. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.